Hello and welcome back to The Feeding Frenzy. In every edition, you can expect four things: something worth watching, something worth listening, something worth reading, and last but not least, a quote worth thinking about. This one is going to be short and sweet this time, or more short than sweet than usual, because I actually just got back from a trip to Nashville, and for one thing, my voice is very strained from yelling in loud bars, and so on top of that, I also haven't had a whole lot of time to absorb a whole lot of new stuff for you. So with that, this is going to be a quicker one than usual. Worth listening this week, we have a new podcast hosted by Matt Walker. Matt Walker is the author of Why We Sleep, and if you're a longtime listener or reader on Feeding Curiosity, you are probably already familiar with what his work is all about because I've talked about it before. And his first episode of the podcast is What is Sleep? And I thought this was an interesting one. It's a little bit shorter, around half hour long. Actually, no, sorry, wrong. It was only about 13 minutes long. So it's a quick podcast to put a foundation for everyone to dive into. Moving on to worth reading, there's actually two articles this week. The first one is from Wired. This article is The Perfect Number of Hours to Work, 5. Before diving too far into this, I will start with a quote. Research indicates that 5 hours is about the maximum that most of us can concentrate hard on something. There are periods when you can push past that, but the reality is that most of us have about that good work time in us every day. And that's from Alex Pang, founder of Silicon Valley Consultancy, Strategy, and Rest. So first off, I found this article really interesting. I'm sure many of you may read this because there's confirmation bias, because just how much it feels like having longer hours, the shift to remote work, and just in general, the pace changing in recent months with everything shifting. The other part, though, is that they don't just make this completely clickbait. I thought that they explore the downsides of shorter work schedules, or where in certain areas that this idea of shorter work schedules actually can't be applied. And I thought that was really cool. And so here's another quote. There are a number of jobs that need to stick to specific hours, and that permeates society. But there are lots and lots of jobs for which specific hours are completely unnecessary. My sense is that there will be more variations and differences between these jobs to come. Unfortunately, they will probably exacerbate inequalities. And that's from Jean-Emmanuel Deneve. Apologize if I mispronounced that. And he is an associate professor of economics and strategy at the University of Oxford Said Business School. Also, not sure if I pronounced that correctly. So I found that really interesting because he's totally right. There's shift workers, there's many jobs in the world that you just have to be there for a set amount of time. And so how this is all going to develop and play out in the future is anybody's guess. But I think over the next couple of years, we will see shifts. The next article is Culture War Terms Can Compress Complex Ideas in an Unhelpful Way. This is something I've always long been frustrated with in general, is this compression of complex ideas. No matter what side of the fence you fall on, at least on this culture war topic, which this article is centered around, I find compression to be just incredibly troublesome and in most cases frustrating. And it's just the nature of the internet to me in a lot of ways. And the one thing that I find is more frustrating about it is that people will continue to evolve terms, and depending on what side you fall on, it tends to take on different meanings depending on your in-group. And that makes it even more complicated in the face of these things, because now you have two different groups using the same term for different meanings. And that is only going to ever exacerbate the issue. And I think this quote here really sums up the issue here. The problem with these terms is their compression. They are signposts rather than arguments, only making sense in the context of more elaborate meaning, or they are signposts rather than arguments, only making sense in the context of more elaborate reasoning. Those who use them often seem to hope that the catchphrases invoke all the nuances of the underlying concept. In the vituperative, tweet-length exchanges that now pass for political debate, this is usually wishful thinking. And again, this is a very complex topic, one that I hope to get into more detail eventually in longer form. But I thought this was a good one to highlight here because using shorthand all the time is not good, because we typically need more resolution than just saying the clickbaity thing to get a complex idea across, especially when you're talking to someone who's more likely to disagree with you. This week's worth watching was a video explaining quantum physics and quantum computing. I had recently read an article on Google's time crystal discovery in collaboration with Stanford, and reading that article, it was very complicated even for me. And so I opted from sharing that one directly, even though there still is a link to it from this video. But I thought it would be more beneficial for a foundation of quantum physics and quantum computing, because this area of exploration is probably going to continue to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years. And so it never hurts to understand at least a foundational level of some of these areas of research. And to wrap it up, we have a quote from Leonardo da Vinci. "A painter should begin every canvas with a wash of black, because all things in nature are dark except where exposed by the light." Thank you all for joining me in whatever format you choose, and I will see you all in the next edition, and hopefully next week will be much more in depth, but this one I wanted to get out as quickly as possible without further delay so that I'm not dragging my heels. So again, thank you all for listening/watching, and I will catch you all next week.